Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Maria. I'm from Belkasoft. First of all, very brief introduction on our company and software. Belkasoft is a team of professionals in digital forensics, data recovery, and reverse engineering. The company focuses on creating easy-to-use products for forensic investigators and experts. We are on the market since 2007, and now we have 3 offices in the United States and in Europe. Well, our customers, we're very proud of them, are mostly government agencies and federal departments, police and law enforcement agencies in all over the world. And we are also proud to have some big corporates, and that's why we are now focusing on creating incident response feature to add incident response features in our tool as well. What's Belkasoft Evidence Center, or BEC, how we call it? It's our all-in-one digital forensics and incident response tool, our major product. Why we call it digital all-in-one tool? Because it covers all major digital forensics branches. We started as computer forensic tool, then we are pretty strong in memory forensics. We do a lot for mobile forensics now. We have recently added a lot of new ways to extract data from mobile phones to analyze them. We extract data from clouds, and we allow you to extract data remotely. So we support remote forensics as well. Then we provide options for both guru investigators for low-level analysis, and we allow you to review some artifacts out of the box, a lot of them, honestly. Now, we are very proud to be one of the 3 nominees in the category Digital Forensics and Incident Response Commercial Tool of the Year in Forensics Forecast. I kindly ask you to vote for Belkasoft Best of Breed Solution Evidence Center. And the link for voting is provided in our chat and GoToMeeting chat, and it will be available during whole webinar, so please vote. Okay, so now all about Belkasoft Evidence Center incident investigation support. Let's start with a cyber kill chain model review. I guess you are familiar with this concept. You know, there are a lot of prostate hacker groups. Between them are famous Russian groups, American, Chinese, and so on. One of the most famous among them is Lockheed Martin Corporation. They help United States government to respond to incidents. And already in 2011, Lockheed Martin introduced their model, which is aimed to help analytics, incident, and forensic investigators to describe the attacks. Kill chain is a term originally used by the military to define the steps an enemy uses to attack a target. And similar in concept to the military's model, cyber kill chain defines the steps used by cyber attackers in today's cyber-based attacks. The theory is that by understanding each of these stages, defenders can better identify and stop attackers at each of their respective stages. Then, describing an attack with this model can help to compare attacks, find some general points, general tactics, and since 2011, various versions of the cyber kill chain have been released. However, the original Lockheed Martin model that you now can see on your screens has a great advantage of focusing on the human element. So the steps which the original model identifies are those you are seeing on your slide: reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control. and
actions on objectives.
So it's enough to intercept the bad guys at any of them. Well, they will deny from their goal, or at least will make enough noise. Now, adding some Belkasoft. The first step, the first stage, reconnaissance. Before we start an attack on some target, we should gather some information on it. It is hard to attack right away. We would require at least some email address to send the malware to. And what happens? Everybody has a website now. A website contains contact emails, sometimes company management details, their names, info on other employees. Then we can use social networks, look for more detail, maybe personal emails. By the way, we have not necessarily to compromise an office workstation. It may be enough to compromise a personal phone or laptop. Very often it is connected to the organization via VPN, or we may have luck and find a certificate directly on a personal device. It happens sometimes. And another point to consider is people often use the same passwords for different stations and for different locations. Well, unfortunately, Belkasoft can't help at this first step. We would like to, but there is not any software yet in this stage, but it appears on the second stage, weaponization. Actually, the typical attack looks as follows. The hackers compromise one host, then move deep into the network, get the accounts, preferably the sysadmin account, naturally. But nowadays, nobody sends software in a mail. Why? Well, evidently, it will not be able to bypass the protection, to bypass sandbox, antivirus. So, in order to load the malware, we need to place it inside an archive, in a document with an exploit, or in LNK file. Adding some malware we need, PowerShell script, other activity. So the attackers prepare their weapon. Belkasoft helps you with gathering these weapons in just one tap. We show a list of files which were downloaded or sent by emails, and we have an option to copy all attachments in a folder. If we are talking about non-attack, you probably have a list of hashes. We have a hash set analysis option at Belkasoft, and it's a good help for forensic expert because normally we know sometimes spent between the incident and its investigation in forensics companies, because you are very busy now. So you may want to look for available hashes in the internet and add the hash set to the Belkasoft Evidence Center. Okay, now delivery. How our payload can be delivered to the victims. So messengers, malicious websites, emails are still the most popular way. They can contain an attachment or a link. So the mail itself is safe, just contain a link to, say, Dropbox, where the infected stuff is waiting. And naturally, any way to deliver the payload will leave traces. Browser's history, cache. You probably know how Belkasoft Evidence Center shows this stuff, and there is no difference with forensic investigations. Well, sometimes USB drives are used. Their advantage is they don't require internet connection. They send a command through the software which is already installed on the PC. And Belkasoft Evidence Center shows you all USB drives details, including timestamps, of course. Well, exploitation stage. Exploitation not necessarily means exploit. Very often, the vulnerability is a human. For example, you receive a document containing macros. It's not dangerous, just a document. And when you open it, you are notified that macros were disabled. Would you like to enable? Yes, please. And you understand what's going after. So the files should have been open. So we'll look for traces of file opening. Browsers, already mentioned, Belkasoft Evidence Center will show you cache, will show you browser history. You can check sites in VirusTotal interface directly from Belkasoft Evidence Center interface. You have direct integration and files. Files are not so easy to detect, but we could learn a CVE number and look in Google for the stuff this exploit normally creates. Because an exploit itself can be easily detected after it was used once. New unknown exploits are mostly used for very directional attacks and of course, for very important targets. Okay, what's on? Malware tries to persist in the system and establish connection with the command server. Run keys, service tasks are used for this purpose. More details can be found at MITRE-ATT&CK website. It's almost all about persistence, and we at Belkasoft use this source to learn what should we extract with our tool. This way, we support the most common ways like startups, like scheduled tasks, services, and some less known ways like WMI subscriptions. The next step is about how communicate malware and its server. Sometimes the permanent connection is used. Sometimes the malware uses beacons and send a request at regular intervals. Normally, they use a domain account or IP address and HTTP or HTTPS connection. Well, sometimes not very usual ports are used, and we will see one of them during our live demo session today. So, how Belkasoft helps? If we are talking about a custom executable, we are looking for traces in a memory or in a page file. And we are very proud to support all Windows version. If the payload is uploaded at every startup, so there will be traces in registries. And well, events logs are always useful as well. So the most interesting, the attackers gain the control. They have the desired privileges. If they were not detected by this moment, the so-called living of the land tactics are used. It means the attackers use the facilities already available on the network. They use RDP or SMP to communicate between computers. They use PowerShell scripts, pre-install system tools. It might not be obvious, but there are more than 100 system tools in Windows that can be used by hackers. Okay, generally, we at Belkasoft look here for the activity in the similar way we use for forensic cases. When we are trying to restore user activity, what was open, when it was open, and think about when it was open. Timeline option recently added is very helpful. Okay. Oops. Now, here you can review the list of artifacts we support in our tool. Fortunately, Windows operating system records almost every program or user's move, and most of the artifacts are obtained from the Windows registry. I mean, happening DLLs, logon scripts, startup, services, scheduled tasks, remote connections, of course. And we also look in non-standard registry files like syscache, shimcache, which stores data on different executables and batch scripts, mcache, where checksums can be stored. And we also analyze some non-registry artifacts. One of the very important artifacts we support is prefetch files. Prefetch files contain important details such as run count, last execution timestamps, and even child executables names in some cases. I will show you in our product how all this stuff is visualized in Evidence Center. And so now let's switch to the product. We have an image which was shared with us by our partners. And the image is pretty big, so it's already analyzed because I do not want to spend the time now for analyzing it. So here you can see our dashboard, which contains information about every case, and it is pretty easy to navigate between cases because you can review what was inside in every case, and you can easily load it. You can see data sources which were added. You can see what application types were extracted, the most frequently contacted contacts from the case, and reports, if any. You can also create a new case, but it's out of scope of the webinar today. Let me switch to the Incident Investigation tab. So, in this tab, in the left panel, you see the tree of artifacts. You can see that the artifacts here are divided by the stage of the life cycle of malware. So we can see here some data related with malware execution and some artifacts related to malware persistence. In separate notes, we can review recent files and some system events. So in the left panel, you see the tree. In the right panel, you see the list of the items. And when you select any item, you can review its properties in the bottom. So what we can start with. This is an interesting case. As you know, some attackers use WMI event subscription to obtain persistence on the target host. Many exploitation frameworks, for example, PowerShell Empire and Quadic, allow to achieve it automatically, so it becomes more and more popular. So that's why we added an automatic detection in BC, and as far as I know, this is a pretty unique feature. So this image includes suspicious WMI event subscriptions, and let's review it. So we can look at the properties. So we can look for the type of the subscription and turn to the arguments. I hope you can see it now. We can see that the script this is a script running from a command line, and this is an HTML app, so JavaScript is available. At the startup, ms.hta.exe file with this strange name will run. What we can do now? We can also see where it is stored. It is stored in program data folder. So Now we can switch to the file system and review this file in file system in program data folder. We can open it, for example, in hex viewer in order to review it in more detail. And we also can just copy its content and, for example, study it in a notepad. So there is a lot of stuff, but what catches our eyes is the IP address. And by the way, pretty unpopular port is used. So we definitely should check this host. And we can see that our file with this wired names FQBAW WSF is stored in a temp folders. Then it runs, yeah, and then it gets deleted from a temp folder. So it will operate in the memory, but there will not be traces in a hard drive. So now we have some keywords, and we can. It's time to use search options in Evidence Center. We can introduce the file name, for example, or maybe host name, or maybe some other pivot points we got, and we will look for coincidence. In Task Manager window, you can now see what task is going on and their progress. So now their search is completed, and we can review results in search result tab. You can see here two nodes. The first one is predefined searches results. I would like to help you to save more time, so some very frequent searches are made automatically during the analysis of the image. And your custom searches appear in the second node. So let's look what was found. We can see here a lot of browsers artifacts. Well, it's natural because if malware is uploaded using Windows facilities, so through HTML applications, it naturally goes through web browsers. And we can review here the history of communication between malware and command server. We can sort the found artifacts by type, and we can see some besides browsers. We can see here some event logs artifacts, some registry artifacts, and we can review it in detail. Okay, so by the moment we know we have we have a server which loads some bad stuff in our network through WMI subscription. What else? What can be interesting here? In a separate node, we have a system 7045 events. 7045 in a system log stands for an installation of a service. So let's look what services were installed. We can sort by date, and the first thing we see is a pretty wide service name. Yeah, it's not very probably that the system can start the process, so the service like this. Let's look what's inside. So, yeah. What we can see, we see that a file is uploading through bitadmin, and we see this is the same file. You know, it's always a good idea to use multiple persistent mechanisms. And this time, the attackers tried to escalate privileges using this service. Then, to mention, as we see, bitadmin was used. It has its own log, so we can search by this keyword bitadmin, and this way we will find the information when this file was loaded. In scheduled task node, we can search also for tasks related to our malware, and we can see that through MSHTA, they started Quedic, which uploaded a bad JavaScript. Yeah, here you can see it. Okay, what else the attackers can do once they got a compromised account? What they are afraid of? They have escalated their privileges, and they definitely do not want their account to be blocked. So the solution here may be to create a new account. The information about accounts is stored in Case Explorer window. And if there are a lot of different users, as in this case, we may want to use a timeline window in order to look what account was created after the compromising was completed. You may want to see here to add some filters. For example, filter by event type. For example, when some new password were created or something like this. And this way you will narrow your search result and you will get the information in a very practical manner, very good visualized. Okay, so we got information that support user was created after our malware was uploaded to our network. So we can go to this user and review its activity in the same way we use it for digital forensics investigations. We can we can see what programs was used. We can see that he typed some URL. We can see that this user accessed the documents, and by the way, in other users directory, and we can see that it's pretty suspicious. Some receipts, maybe it was a goal of this user. So this is the same way we do some investigations in digital forensics cases. Okay, then we can see it use some RDP connection was used. We will get back to our incident investigation tab, and we can see the history of RDP connection here, and we see our old good 77 host. Now the same host, as you remember, was used to upload the malware, and now this host was used for RDP navigation. Well, most probably to access those documents remotely. Okay, that's it for our demo part. Summing up, the same functionality that we previously used for digital forensics investigated, and we also added additional tab where all this information can be found in one place and in very easy way. We also have a remote acquisition option. It's out of the scope of the webinar today. I will just mention that you can acquire data from suspicious hosts in your network remotely. You can deploy an agent using USB drive or using group policy or WMI connection. That means that you can deploy agent using native Windows facilities. Okay, let's switch back to my presentation. And to conclude, we do not limit our tool to do some incident response. We are pretty strong in other forensics features. We have mobile acquisition and analysis, and we recently added our famous checkmate support feature. We use neural networks for analyze pictures. We are pretty strong in computer forensics. We have a lot of different useful viewers. You have seen a hex viewer today, but we also have a SQLite viewer, a plist viewer, and other ways to visualize some stuff. And one more thing is that we added a lot of useful resources for you. We have articles and white papers in our website, and some articles and white papers are dedicated to analysis of incidents. You are welcome to read and download them. We offer you a free trial. Please request if you haven't done it yet. We support academic organizations with deep discounts. And well, once again, please vote for Belkasoft Evidence Center. And if you have any questions, please type them in GoToMeeting chat.